Thanks for being here. It's such a good to see such a strong turnout for our town hall this evening. We're proud to have our state representative, Amy Briel, with us today. She's been working very hard to ensure all your voices are heard in Springfield. We are especially honored today to welcome Speaker Emanuel Welch. It's not every day that we get to host the Speaker of the House out here in our backyard. And so we're really grateful for your leadership and that you came out to spend some time with us today. So please join me in welcoming the representative and the speaker.
Hi everyone, I am honored to be here tonight. It is amazing to see so many people. And that's a testament to how much you care about your community and the state. And I want to thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Local 150 for offering us their hall, which is amazing. So please, let's give them a big thank you. I'd like to thank my team. You're going to hear a lot about them tonight because I couldn't do what I do without them. So Meta Mueller is over there. She is my chief of staff. Montez Solis. All right, up there. We also have Allie Brayboy, who's actually on holiday right now, but she'll be back. And I am floored that our amazing intern, Brogan Long, has traveled from Carbondale to be here tonight. She goes to school down there and lives in DeKalb. So I would like to also thank the speaker. I am overwhelmed that he has agreed to come out here and to listen to us. For me, I was wondering if my voice would be listened to. You're a freshman, you're new. And I can say that the leadership that I've seen through the speaker is amazing. It's one of courage, cooperation, listening, and I'm very honored to have you here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Good evening, everyone. Let's do that again. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's really, truly my honor and privilege to be here with all of you, and I'm just so thankful when my office reached out to the rep and said, hey, the speaker would like to visit. Do you care if he can come and check you out? And she's like, come on, what do you want to do? I'm just really thrilled to be here because honestly, this is my first time in the area. And I told my wife I was going to get here a little early because I wanted to scout out this Starved Rock thing, My family likes to do a little hiking, and I told her, why don't we keep traveling out of state? We can just go to Starved Rock. And so we're looking forward to coming back and spending a little bit more time in the area as well. But I'm just so thrilled to be here. I got to tell you, she says she's a freshman, but she's hit the ground running and she's a rock star. Let's give your representative a round of applause. And I know it's true for me, I know it's true for her, and honestly, no one can do this job alone. It really takes the support of your friends, your family, your spouse. Your spouse is everything in this business. And let's give our husband a well-deserved round of applause for putting up with all of us. Thank you, brother, I really appreciate you. And honestly, she was, before Representative Briel, she was chief of staff. And she had a good role model and mentor, showing her the way. And I gotta tell you, he did a heck of a job for this community in Springfield. I wouldn't be here in this role if he wasn't one of the people who supported me 5 years ago to take on this role at a difficult time. And I'm just so honored for his friendship and leadership and his involvement to this day in the community, and that's Representative Yetnock. I think it is just so important that we do things like this. I tell folks every day, that I get out and have these types of conversations, that I am the only person at Inauguration Day that takes 2 oaths of offices. The representatives, we all take one together. We're sworn in, and we all are elected from our respective districts to represent our communities, and I'm just honored to represent the community that I've grown up in my entire life, in the Maywood, Bellwood area, West Suburban, Cook County, right there on the Cook-DuPage border, and I'm just proud to be a product from that community. But after the members elect a speaker from among them, the speaker has to raise his hand a second time and take a second oath. And I take that second oath very seriously. I've gotten emotional the 3 times I've been blessed and honored to do it because you represent the entire state. And I tell folks, I'm Speaker of the House. I'm not Speaker of the Democrats. I'm Speaker of the House. And I have to represent the entire state of Illinois. And I think in the Constitution, if I was at that meeting in 1970 when they redrew it, I wouldn't have called the office Speaker of the House, because I think the most important job for the Speaker is to listen. It should be listener of the House. That's to the community, to the members, to the people that are in the trenches, right? And so I'm here to certainly, share information and knowledge with you as best as I can, but I want to do a lot of listening too. What you are concerned about, we need to be concerned about. We're going to represent you to the best of our abilities in Springfield. We need to hear you out. And that's what we're here for, and truly, it's an honor and a lifetime to be here as your speaker, and equally honored to be here to listen to your concerns. Thank you, Representative, for having me.
Back on now, okay. I would like to start with jumping right into it. So let's talk about the first session as your legislator. So, please excuse me. Well, I started off going to Springfield in the beginning of January in our inauguration, and then I was appointed to 7 committees. I sit on the Agriculture Committee, the Transportation Committee, Rails, Roads and Bridges, Veterans Affairs, Counties and Townships, Health and Human Services, and Higher Education Appropriation. I'm not sure how I got 7, but I love having all of them. And most of them touch things that are...
She knows how she got 7. It's all my fault. When I was a freshman, I had 7 committees. And I gotta tell you, every time I see a freshman, especially one that I think is gonna be cursed with competence, that's gonna come up over and over again. I love when someone shows me that they're competent, because I put them to work. And the more you learn, the better. And 7 committees, she knocked it out the park. And honestly, the content areas are all different. And so you will represent your community better, and you really appreciate it in the 2nd term and the 3rd term because of the 7 committees. I saw a number of the younger members signing up for 3 and 4 committees. So they got calls from John and Izzy over there saying, the speaker would like you to do a few more to go. And that's how she ended up with 7.
So while in Springfield this session, I was able to work with folks on our side across the aisle and get 4 bills signed by the governor. And I'm very excited about them, so I'll go over them quickly. They're also in your trifold that you got when you came in. The first bill is SB 849. That's a bill that helps our agricultural community. The current statute allows for temporary Class B licenses to be issued for agricultural hauling. The current amount of time is 6 months. As we all know, that's not enough time in a farming season. It's at least 9 months. So we would those folks that would get temporary licenses wouldn't be able to finish the farmer season. So this is something that we did, and now we're able to do that. So the temporary license is extended to 210 days. Woo! I love hearing my farmers are excited about that. You know, I want to say, I was at I was doing a town hall, and somebody was like, well, why is that important? And my thought was, it might not be important to you, but it is important to somebody in our community. And that's why the bills that I put forth and pass are the bills that you need. The second bill is HB 871. That is preventing convicted felons who have human or sexual trafficking in their past from being foster parents or adopting children. That was bipartisan, it was great, and it's necessary. So I'm very excited about that one. HB 1062 is a broadband prioritization expansion. So what happens is we are now rolling out broadband farther and farther across the state. And as we move into the different levels from the BEAD program, we know we need to accelerate the timeline to getting fiber, getting broadband, getting internet accessibility to many areas of our community. So we prioritize that by emphasizing libraries, hospitals, schools, in order to be able to then work from the center point, which is the most crucial, to the middle mile mark and back. So hopefully that will cut through some red tape and allow us to move our broadband infrastructure quicker. And the last that I did was HB 2548. That is banning the marketing, advertising, and sale of self-administered sexual assault kits. Yeah, I know. Everybody goes, oh. Let me give you a little explanation. So, with all the news about how states are backlogged on rape kits, and there is a whole market that has emerged selling self-administered sexual assault kits. They prey on young people, they prey on people who are in power dynamic situations, and they are not admissible in any court. In 33 states, it has been declared inadmissible because there's no chain of custody. So one, they're getting a false protection, and two, a few years ago, the state of Illinois created safety for victims of sexual assault. When you go in to be evaluated after an assault, you don't pay the bill for that assault. We hook you up with resources because you're going to need them. Everything from legal aid to social work to follow-up doctor's visits. And if you're doing those things at home because you're embarrassed, because of a family situation, you're not able to make anything stick should you say to. So we passed that, and I'm very excited. And our final note from Springfield, I have to say, is we passed a balanced budget. Yeah, I get excited about that because I've heard lots of stories. And unlike another budget that affects us, our budget, Windsor, you know what I'm talking about. Our budget was balanced, involved cuts, and protected our most vulnerable. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. I cannot tell you how many of our food banks right now are looking for ways to supplement their income because they're dry. That funding has dried up. Transportation for school districts have lost huge amounts. DeKalb School District, which serves 4,000 students, has lost $1.9 million in funding. And that comes at a 36% cut to transporting students with disabilities and a 24% cut on transporting regular students. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And take a look around. Does it look like we could walk to and from school around here? Exactly. So those are the challenges that the state is facing in addition to all the other ones. But I can say that it was a grueling process and my heart broke because there were things that I really wanted to make sure and we weren't able to give them as much as I hoped. So, but we did the best we could and I'm proud of that. Speaker, do you have anything to add?
Well, let me come to the budget last, because as a freshman legislator to pass 4 pieces of legislation that are now law, that's quite impressive, and I think she deserves a round of applause for that. I was still passing things in my first year as speaker that I wanted to pass in my first year as a legislator, and you've done quite well. I mean, that's really an accomplishment. I think Lance can attest to that. Again, going back to that curse of competence, passing legislation is not easy. One of the things that we really emphasize to legislators is you got to walk around that floor and talk to people, Democrats and Republicans. You got to work with them, and that's how you build the collaboration and the partnerships that are so important, and that shows up in the bills that are passed and what the governor actually signs. And she'll tell you one of my mottos is winners do the work. Winners do the work. It's real simple. And 4 bills signed into law shows that you guys have a winner as a state representative. She's certainly done the work. The thing I want to say about the budget, and I will tell you, speaker was not something I had on my bingo card. It was not something I ever aspired to be. We all know the history of the former speaker, longest serving speaker in U.S. history. Was recently convicted in federal court and going to be reporting to jail. And a few years ago, a number of our colleagues said it was time for a change. And I felt like I was recruited or drafted. And honestly, it's been the honor of a lifetime to serve in this position. But one of the toughest things for me in the role, because budget was not my area of expertise as a rank and file member, was learning the budget and learning how to do it in a way that benefits the entire state and the entirety of our caucus. And I got to tell you, Representative Yetnock was one of the people that came in my office and sat down with me and really told me what he thought could make our processes better. I thought that was fantastic of him to do. A lot of folks are afraid to come into the speaker's office and say, I think we can do things better. But people will doubt what you say and they believe what you do. And I was so thankful that he did that, because I believe Representative Briel and this class were the beneficiaries of that conversation I had with him over a year ago. In our budget process, we put a lot of time and effort into it. It wanted to make sure every single member of our caucus felt like they were a part of that process, that their voices were heard. And we're still constantly trying to figure out ways to make that better. But I think the end result of that very inclusive process is not the speaker putting the budget together and saying, here, vote for it. It's a budget that we all own, that we can all be proud of. And we started it with doing a survey very early on after getting sworn in and saying, what are you hearing in your communities? What's important to you? How can I help you as a member? What do you need to go home and be able to protect? And over again, we heard things about healthcare. That our communities are suffering because hospitals are closing. We heard things about transportation. Schools are too far from homes, that we need to protect transportation. We need to make sure, we're fighting to protect the Medicaid funding that's in the state budget. Because accessing that healthcare, if the healthcare isn't even there, is difficult if you don't have Medicaid. These are many of the things that the members told me were important to fight for. And if you look at the budget that we passed, not only is it balanced, and it does include cuts. No one likes to do cuts, but we had to balance cuts. That budget had about $300 million in cuts. But it was a balanced budget, our 7th balanced budget in a row, 5th since I've been speaker. And we're really proud of that, because I think the first thing you want us all to do is be fiscally responsible. And we've been fiscally responsible, but we've been able to do that by also taking care of things that are important in respective communities. And so, yes, I'm very proud of the work that we did together. And last point, last year, and what prompted that conversation with Rep Briel was we struggled to pass the budget in 2024. I think we barely got enough people to pass the budget. This year, we passed the budget with 75 votes, and it's the most votes we've ever passed a budget with because of the processes that we put in place. So, thank you.
And again, I think that is a testament to your leadership, that you listen, your listenership, Mr. Speaker. So I'd like to give you an update about the things that we've been doing down here in the district. Not only do we work in Springfield for 6 months, but we do work in the district. When I'm down in Springfield, we're still working. And so I wanted to give you some ideas of the type of things that we do and the things that we can do for you. First off, I've already introduced my team, and there was an ulterior motive to introducing my team. Because if you need something and you can't reach me, I trust them with my own life. I trust them with your lives. They are amazingly responsive. We have multiple ways to reach out to us. You can email, call, you can text us if you want. And we're able to respond to you in any of those ways. So Meta and Montez, Broken Alley are all brilliant and they care about you so very, very much. What do they do? What do I do? Is we do a lot of constituent casework. So we help you navigate the bureaucracy of state institutions. If you're looking to have your license renewed and it's stuck somewhere in the process, we can make some calls and unstick it. We were able to reach out and help the LaSalle County CASA get a grant due to extenuating circumstances. They had missed the grant deadline, which is the only thing that keeps it afloat. And by reaching out to the Attorney General's office, we were able to extend that enough for them to get that granted, and they get it. We provide help with getting payments as child care providers from the state. So anything related to the state is what we do with constituent work, but we also listen, like the speaker said, we listen a lot. And that's okay. If you come to our office, you'll find it cozy, and we would love to have you. We talk to folks about issues that they're facing, and sometimes they bring us legislation, and sometimes we come up with solutions together. It's not always a law, sometimes it's just connecting the right people. We have met with our industries, we've met with townships, municipalities, nonprofits, for-profits, farmers, you name it, we've been there. We've hosted 2 blood drives. This is our 3rd town hall. We've participated in 2 forums, and we've had events all across the district in lots of different ways. So you can usually find us. If you're to look in, you'll be able to find us. So the thing that I'm really most excited about is we started 2 councils. One is the council, our Emerging Leaders Council. So that is anyone in the district. And Winter came up from Macomb, and he's a member of our Emerging Leaders Council. And so Winter came up here, and it's a group right now. We've been doing it since March. It's a group of about 15 people from the age of 17 to 30. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to be in school. Whatever career you're pursuing, whatever your interest, there are common factors that are important to people of that age. So we work on those issues, and it turns out affordable housing is top on their list. We also have a 76 Council of Wise Elders. Come on, that's the coolest name ever, isn't it? Don't you want to be on the Council of Wise Elders? I totally do. I don't want to be a senior. Like, they named themselves, and when you're 60 years old or more, you have every right to name your council. And that is a group of 15 folks, and we're always adding more. We participate. We have a Facebook portion that you can jump online and participate if you can't be there. And I think what I am most excited about is coming this fall. We are going to be launching our Neurodivergent Council. So for those of you who don't know, I am autistic and have ADHD, and all three of my sons do. And I think there are quite a few people who are on the spectrum, and this council is for those individuals who struggle or have mastered their neurodivergency. But I found that the neurodivergent perspective is very unique, and it is sort of my perspective as well. So our goal with it is to provide an opportunity for people who may not normally feel comfortable expressing themselves to get more involved and feel more comfortable being who they are and proud of being who they are. So the last thing I'm gonna say is, if you look at the brochures, there's QR codes. There'll be QR codes up here. There's a QR code for the speaker as well as for us. You can take that picture and sign up for a council. It's not like you have to pay a fee, and it's not partisan. It is a chance for people to get together and work through issues that are challenges. And guess what our Council of Wise Elders' top priority is? Affordable housing. Affordable housing and healthcare, of course, that's there too. Trust me, everybody's worried about healthcare. Really doing all that. So I really encourage you to follow our website, staterepbriel.com. Follow us on socials. We're not the greatest, but that's why Allie's coming on to get better about updating. But we will have lots of activities and things going on, so please stay tuned. Read our newsletter, and we'd love to have your input. It means the world to us. And without further ado, I'm done, except for questions. Would you like to add anything, speaker? All right.
Okay, so we're moving on to our Q&A part, a little bit of housekeeping. We asked audience members to limit themselves to one question so everyone has an opportunity to ask something. Please raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and I will come on over to you with the microphone and let you ask your question. I'll hold the microphone, and then if there's somebody, if you think of a question later or you don't get a chance tonight, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to get back to you anytime. You can also, if there's something tonight that doesn't get answered, you can ask any of us staff members and we will make sure we get an answer for you, okay? So, without further ado, does anyone have a question they'd like to ask this evening? If you share your name and where you're from.
I'm Heidi Henry. I'm actually in the 75th district, right next to Murray. And Murray and I count on Murray to represent me because my representative does nothing to represent me. And so the question I'm bringing to you and to the speaker right now is the data center issue. Where we live in LaSalle County, because we have so much open land and access to water, we are getting inundated with data center proposals. The problem with the data centers is all of us in this room have had exponential increases in our electric bills. My home and my farm are both solar. I have not felt that like other people have. However, I've watched my neighbors and people I know in town on limited incomes really struggle with this. My question, Mr. Speaker and Representative Briel, is I need to know as an environmentalist that we are going to do everything we can in the state to limit the ecological damage that these data centers do to our environment. They are going to generate amazing jobs, amazing union jobs, which is super important. I look at it as the wife of an IBEW retired man, and I know that this is very lucrative. But could the state, could you consider making them use and recycle their water on site so it doesn't pollute our river? I was on the Illinois Rivers Coordinating Council for decades. I know how much work we put into the Illinois River to get it clean and the Fox River to clean it up. And there's still a lot more work to do. But we need them to cool the air before it's released into the environment. And we need them to recycle the water on site. And there needs to be statewide legislation to protect all Illinoisans. And those measures will provide even more jobs.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Data centers are great, but they are also very resource heavy in consumption. And we've seen just recently that Meta in DeKalb has entered an agreement with Constellation to buy their energy explicitly from them in order to help. Some of the things we've done are requiring on-site generation or some amplification to the, at least in the DeKalb area, amplification to the power grid. I think you're absolutely right. The water consumption issue is something that is very important to me. We live here, right? We are river people. But we also are farmers, and our water table is very important. The aquifers that run underneath this area are very important. And they will eventually dry up, as we're seeing all across the area in the northern part of the state. Areas are having to buy water from Lake Michigan. And we are not really in that position to be able to do that. So yes, some data centers have their own reclamation processes, but I would definitely like to look into something like that. Sure.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Heidi, for that question. I think that's a very good question. And I will tell you that's something that's on the top of our agenda. We are scheduled to go back into what we call veto session, October 14th through the 16th, and then again, the 28th through the 30th. We call it veto session because if the governor vetoes something over the summer, that's the time where we can take it up, but we can take up other things as well. During this upcoming session, it's very likely that this is an issue that we're going to address as part of an energy bill. There were versions that floated around back in May that, there were different opinions on. And it just reminded me of my first year as speaker when we passed a bill that most folks refer to as CEJA. It's the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. My first year as speaker, similarly in the spring session, we were having some real serious conversations in the energy space. And a lot of folks wanted us to pass that bill. The last day of session, the House, many of our folks were like, Speaker, that bill's not ready. So we slowed it down, and we worked on it all summer. We worked on it into the fall, and we came back into a special session and passed what became CEJA. And it was a model piece of legislation that states from all over the country looked at and replicated. Other speakers were calling me about what we did for it, something that I was really proud of. And it was passed with strong bipartisan support. The data center boom here in Illinois is because of that and the work that we've done in the energy space. 5 years, like 4.5 years is an eternity in this industry, and we see what it has become. We certainly want Illinois to still be front and center. We want to be able to take advantage of this boom from a job perspective, but we also want to be responsible about it. We want to make sure we don't hurt our environment. And that's why all of these groups are at the table. That's why we didn't pass something in May, similar to 21. We've been working on this all summer. My team's telling me, Speaker, we're really close. We think we're going to be able to get something done in the upcoming veto session that all the parties agree on, labor, environmentalists. There was a time in Springfield where, environmentalists weren't even at the table, right? They just weren't even heard. Under my leadership style, all of us folks are at the table. It might take us a little longer to get things done, but I would rather take our time and get it right and make sure the policy is right for Illinois than rush and get it wrong. These jobs are going to go somewhere. If they're not in Illinois, they're going to go to Iowa, they're going to go to Indiana. So let's make sure we work with the business communities, get their input. Let's work with the utility companies, let's get environmentalist labor, work with everyone so that we can all take advantage of this industry that continues to grow.
Please share your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Tonka, Illinois. Speaker, Representative, thank you so much for coming out to our little neck of the woods. Sometimes we feel like we're in Forgotonia here, in between all the flyovers in the cities. My question is related to the balance in government. I had the honor of meeting all 7 justices. Wow, what a dream team in Illinois. And our legislative branch, you are working bipartisan, and our governor is a rock star. I am so lucky that I live in Illinois that I feel safe, but we feel very concerned about National Guard coming in, military troops coming in, ICE coming into our local businesses. We text each other when we see somebody at the local Casey's or Dollar General or our local factories, and we're scared. What can you guys do to help allay our fears? Thanks.
You have every right to feel scared. We are in times that are bonkers, I guess is about the only word that I can come up with for it. When you're threatened that the Department of War is going to come into your state, it's very scary, and we're seeing reports and upticks all across the state. It's not just Chicago, and I know exactly what you're saying. There's some bills that we've been passing around and people have been putting forward to, at the very least, make sure that there's identification. There's a bill about no masks, but how do you really know who that person is? That it's a very scary thought that you could be snatched off the street for no reason, put into a vehicle, and your family doesn't know where you are for how long? And we've seen this happen to everyone across the spectrum of the United States. Whether you're a citizen or not doesn't really seem to mean a whole lot. So those are a couple of the steps that we have been talking about. I know our governor is very adamant that the National Guards should stay out. We have a lot of legal recourse, and we're working through those channels. I want to say our governor is good, but our attorney general is a rock star. Attorney General Raoul has won, I think, 90-some cases against the federal government. He is fighting constantly for anything that infringes upon states' rights. And so legally, we are in great hands. I'm going to hand it over to the speaker to give more information.
Well, thank you, Representative. I'm sorry, I missed your name? Sarah. Sarah, thanks for the question. Let me begin by answering it this way. First of all, I don't know anyone who lives in a community that doesn't want their community to be safe. You want your community to be safe, I want my community to be safe, I want my kids to go to school in a safe environment. Everyone wants to live in a community that's safe to live, work, and play. We all want that. Part of the work that we've been doing in the budget space, the investments that we've made, if you look at it since 2021, crime has consistently gone down in Illinois, specifically in the city of Chicago, but all over the state. And the things that we're doing that are scientific proven methods are working. And we've done that without the National Guard. And so The National Guard, when they were in Los Angeles, was costing $1.1 million a day. $1.1 million a day. You know what we can do with $1.1 million a day? We can do a heck of a lot. You know, we can open hospitals instead of close hospitals with $1.1 million a day. There's a lot we can do for our schools. There's a lot we can do for our local law enforcement, equipment that we can buy them. There's just a lot more we can do with a better use of those resources. I would have to tell you what's happening on the federal level is really worrying me. That's what keeps me up at night, because all of this work that we're doing in the budget space the last 7 years, it's in jeopardy. There is absolutely no way we can backfill the holes that are being created. One of the things that's being withheld from Illinois is violence prevention grants. Almost $1 billion in violence prevention grants being withheld from Illinois. It's been those violence prevention grants that have helped us all over the state bring crime down. So you're withholding dollars in so many areas, and then you're also wastefully spending it on things like the National Guard. I just don't understand that. And then one of the other points of frustration is typically you work with local authorities when you're going to do something like that. My office hasn't got any information from the federal government. The governor's office isn't getting information. The mayor's office in Chicago is not getting information. There's no collaboration and communication whatsoever. For those things to work, you need everybody working together. You know, together each achieves more. And by doing it the way that it's being threatened, that's not the best business practice. And I think that's something that we should all be concerned about. We should all be asking for collaboration and partnership and working together to solve these problems.
Mr. Phillips.
I'm Mike Phillips. I teach at Illinois Valley Community College. I actually had a couple questions, but we're limited to one. So one of them is kind of niche. It's about a retirement issue, and perhaps I could talk to you like when things are going later, because it gets kind of into the weeds. But maybe a bigger, better question, since Representative Briel is on higher ed appropriations, has to do with state support for higher education. There's an appropriation bill for the public university funding formula, and in that there's kind of another thing to look at looking at the funding formula for community colleges. And I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about, like, if you think that's going to be going forward this fall or in the spring, kind of your general sense of those funding formula bills and what you kind of see as the future of higher ed funding in Illinois.
So I was fortunate enough to sit on the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, which means I got to take a look at those types of initiatives, as well as every university and junior college that we have in the state. And I think that you bring up a really, really good point. And I apologize. You know how we have really bad Wi-Fi here? It's buffering right now. So, as far as those go, there is still a lot of discussion. Some of those bills were not in the Appropriations Committee, they were in the Higher Ed committees. And I know there's different factions that have different opinions on it, but having sat there, I can say the conversations are ongoing and that I hope to see progress, but I think the speaker might be able to enlighten us more.
Mike, I feel like with regard to the higher education space, we're in a similar place where we were with early education funding when I first joined the legislature in 2013. And in 2017, with a Democratic legislature and a Republican governor, we passed the evidence-based funding formula. That was 2017, and since 2017, the state has done a better job of funding our K through 12 schools because of that one particular policy change. It's worked so well that we're trying to do something similar on the higher education level by putting in a funding formula that will fairly distribute the state dollars to our 11 state universities. We're not there yet. I think we're getting closer. I think it's important that we have these conversations all over the state because I think that's going to help us get there. But one of the things about the evidence-based funding formula that we have learned since 2017, the state is required to put new money into it every single year. Every year we put $300 million plus new dollars into the evidence-based funding formula to help fund schools better in the state, with the hope that they would either hold the line on their local property tax levies or raise them minimally because they're getting more from the state. It's also making poorer school districts more adequate. We're trying to do that with our university system. Better fund Western, better fund Northern and Eastern, compare them to what U of I is getting. We're trying to make it more equitable. But in order to do that, the experts were telling us this past year, it would require us to put in a minimum of $135 million every year for the next 10 years. And so we have our evidence-based funding formula that we're putting new money in every year. And then to pass a new policy that will require the state to put in a minimum of 135 every year. When you're in a role like mine, and I'm sitting in a room with the governor and the Senate president, we're like, where do we get the money from? What you don't want to do is pass the policy and you can't fund it. You don't want that. We don't want that. If we pass it, we want to be able to fund it. So we have to make sure that when we do get it done, we can commit to it and we can properly fund it every year, because the data is there that if we get this done, we can better fund all of our universities, and the regional universities can really benefit from it tremendously.
Share your name and where you're from.
All right, I'm Veronica Garcia Martinez. I'm actually from Cortland, Illinois, but I'm a teacher in DeKalb. I met Murray out at Cornfest recently, and I come here on behalf of my Latino community. And I know we talked a little about immigration and the issue with National Guard coming in the city, but I have a little bit of a bigger issue, in my opinion. And my issue is this. I'm out there, I see it, I'm a Latino advocate, I'm standing strong with my immigrant community, and what we're seeing is that although we are a trust state, and police are not supposed to be working with ICE, we're seeing videos of police officers pulling over people in the community, waiting there, and then pulling away, and then who sweeps in? ICE vehicles. How are we holding police agencies accountable? Many of which are wearing even sheriff's badges, like their gear. And I was, I hope to work with you in the future. I'm running for state rep as well in District 70. But what I'm seeing is, or what I'm hearing, and this campaign trail, is that certain police departments have MOUs with ICE or different, whether it's ATF or what is it called? The U.S. Marshals, and yes, they cannot enforce immigration itself, they can't handcuff them, they can't ask them their legal status, but they're working with these agencies. What can we do to bring out more transparency from these policing agencies in our state? Because I think that the community deserves transparency so that we know if we do have police officers from our community working with them, that they are not that we're aware, So we're seeing this, it's disturbing. Actually, it happened today in Maywood, which is where you said you come from. So it bothers me. I teach in DeKalb, and this is something that happened on June 17th. The person that was taken and detained said that they were pulled over by a police vehicle, a sheriff's vehicle. Then that vehicle took off, and agents came in, detained him. It turned out he was a U.S. citizen, so he was later released. But these are things that we're hearing all over the state, and it's really troubling.
Thank you for that question. And honestly, in 2017, the same time we were fighting to pass the evidence-based funding formula, I was the legislator who was drafting and carrying and sponsoring the Trust Act. Got it passed the Democratic legislature, and then got a Republican governor to sign it into law. It is a solid constitutional piece of legislation, as evidenced by getting Bruce Rauner to sign it, and that wasn't an easy task. You know, I can tell you that a lot of communities around the state, particularly with the rhetoric coming out of Washington, feel like they don't have to follow our law. The person who's charged with enforcing our law is our Attorney General. And so if we are aware of incidents, you can report them to Representative Briel's office, you can call my office. We'll definitely take it down and work with the Attorney General's office to deal with these particular agencies and make sure they're following Illinois law. The Trust Act was challenged by the U.S. Justice Department recently, and it was found to be constitutional. So we have to enforce it, and it's going to take all of us working together and reporting these issues. And listen, we put more money in this year's budget for the Attorney General to do exactly what he's doing, to take these folks to court and to make them do what's right. And I got to tell you, he's been doing a great job. So if you're aware of incidents, and you're telling me something here tonight, I'm hearing for the first time, I wasn't aware of the incident in Maywood, which is right in my backyard. We'll look into that, and if it wasn't proper, we're going to get to the bottom of it. So thank you.
Share your name and where you're from.
I'm Rod Thorson. Thank you, Representative Briel, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you being here tonight. And my wife wished she could be here. She works for the Illinois Education Association. She negotiates contracts in Batavia, Geneva, and West Aurora. High tax or high property tax based districts. She taught in Grand Ridge, which is a rural school district, relatively poor, but I don't think it should be. Today's property tax due date in LaSalle County today. We're on an acre, $250,000 house, paid $5,000. I don't complain about that at all. It goes to our local services, and I feel like it's fair value. My neighbor is a 200-acre cornfield at $15,000 an acre value. It's worth $3 million. Their property tax bill was exactly $5,000 too. Now I know we're on a productivity index in Illinois. The Farm Bureau wanted that. Even though prices are down, farmland values are still high, cash rent values are still high, and it appears to me that we could more fairly tax commercial property, farmland, and give more opportunities to rural schools, better pay for teachers, better opportunities for those students if we had a more fair property tax system in rural Illinois. And I wonder how you feel about that.
So, that's an excellent question. That's the first time that has been brought up to me. Taxing farmland at
It's about $25 an acre. 25 to 25,
Yeah.
$28 an acre is what farmland pays in and around LaSalle County.
Right. That's actually an interesting perspective. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I would have to look into it and start to see. I can say, coming from a farm family, that I could see there would be some pushback, and in particular right now with the uncertainty of the tariffs and the 40% loss in sales of soybeans to China, as well as the lack of corn orders that they have received from Taiwan. Our farmers right now are in a tough spot. And so I think that's something to look into. I don't know if right now would be the best time, as we had to cut 300 million or 300,000. No, it was. I apologize for the exact number. We had to cut what we normally put into our soil conservation and cover crop program this year. When governor recommended the change, I fought to not, especially if you consider things like the dust storm that we had this last spring. I was driving back from Springfield and was following the storm. Literally, it covered and closed an entire construction zone with at least 50 workers who were fixing a bridge, and they couldn't see, traffic couldn't see. And this is not the first time. Last year, in a very similar part of the state, right in that area, we had a 52-car pileup due to a dust storm. And that's a climate change, but it's also agricultural practices. So when we take away those incentives, such as cover crops, which allow our nutrients and soil to become re-enriched, and when we cut that, then farmers incentivized to plant more, and we end up with situations like that. And it's really interesting because I just read an article today in dealing with farming, and there's an area down by St. Louis that had been flooded out about 5 years ago. The dam had broken, and it had been broken many times, the levee, and they decided they weren't going to redo it. The Army Corps of Engineers said they couldn't. And so now, but what happened was that overflow from the river deposited countless amounts of sand onto that land. So there are farmers in our state who literally have to plant crops that won't grow in order to get the subsidy so that they can have the crop insurance. They can't even switch crops because of what we've done. So I'm sorry, I got really weedy into farmland. I love me my ag. But I do think that might be an idea. But right now, I don't know if there would be much appetite, in particular because our farmers are under attack, and I'm very worried about our small family farms. I am worried that, the largest owner of farmland in the state of Illinois is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The second largest landowner in the state of Illinois is Bill Gates, and that's farmland. Not to mention the foreign investments that we have, and so many of our family conventional farmers have been forced to become commercial farmers working for only specific seed companies. So these are all issues that I take extremely seriously, and I think that hey, I would be willing to look at anything.
I'm sorry, sir, what did you say your name was? Rod? R-O-D? Nice to meet you, Rod. Yeah, let me tell you that when I listen to members go out through the districts or run into them at events and I say, what are you hearing in your community? Most folks are telling me that property taxes is the number one issue. Property taxes is a real concern. Cost of living is a real concern in this world today. And so that's something that we're taking very seriously. And in this past session in the House, we put together a property tax working group that's trying to find ways to lessen the property tax burden for everybody, because we're hearing it from everyone. I say that we're not done yet. There's work that we need to do in our veto session and some collaboration that needs to be done with our Senate to try to find what that actual package is going to look like. But property taxes is a top concern for us that we're trying to address for everyone. I say everyone, including farmers. I've been traveling around this state, and I got to tell you, I'm very proud of the Adopt a Legislator program that the Farm Bureau has, because I'm from Maywood, Illinois. There's no farms in Maywood. I didn't grow up on a farm, so once I became a legislator and traveling and meeting these farmers and learning about farming and what it takes what it costs to run a farm. I've learned a great deal these last several years being an active member of this adopted legislative program. And many of our members take part of that. In Illinois, agriculture is our #1 industry. Soybeans, #1, Illinois. And so we don't want to run those farmers out. We want to, try to create an environment that's going to keep them here too, but also keep folks in their homes. And so we got to figure out what that balance is and what that solution is. I wish I had it. What you were proposing, I certainly took notes on it. I want to have my team take a look at it. But I want to help everyone, including that farmer. There's a better way to even help them, because that one piece of equipment that they use to harvest costs a fortune, and it's just, you want to help everyone, the homeowner, the business owner, folks that just love being in Illinois. I want them to stay. I want to help the state grow and do better. And so I think all of us got to figure out what those solutions are. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Terry Bell, Ottawa, U.S. Army veteran, Korea service veteran. I got out, I kept serving on the state, county, and local levels. All my life I have served. My concerns are many, as Mr. Phillips said earlier, but what's been on my mind a lot lately is these data centers and their usage of property, prime farm land, the solar farms, prime farmland. Why aren't we using the abandoned Brockman landfill? Why aren't we using those abandoned strip mines? Pilkington, I see, is beginning to fill in a strip sand mine pit and they're putting solar on that. Now I says, they're thinking right up my alley. Now we have an abandoned coal mine west of Streeter and near the village of Kangley, and I believe there's others in the area. Why aren't we using this, making these people reuse this property instead of it just sitting there abandoned? Our landfills, for example, our current landfill, when they fill, why aren't our sewer treatment plants collecting that methane gas? Why aren't the landfills collecting that methane gas? Thank you.
Thank you for your service, first and foremost. We're thankful for you every day. And thank you for your question also. A lot of this, what we're dealing with now in terms of solar and wind, and those are new spaces that we're in. And in a lot of parts of the state where jobs once existed and are no longer there, jobs are coming back because those industries are catching up with those areas. I still think that that's a phase that we're in. One of the reasons why we're trying to get the energy policy right is because we want to be able to take advantage of those old sites and repurpose them. And where once they were booming with jobs, again, they'll be booming with jobs, but the industry has to catch up with it. And a lot of the slowdown right now is folks are waiting for us to tweak the policy yet again. And we're committed to doing that, and I'm hoping we get it done in the next 38 days.
One of the things that, one of my wheelhouses is energy. And I worked very closely for quite a while with the former representative Emanuel on energy crisis that we face and understanding the territories that we're in and grid stability and connections and how we're going to go about it. A lot of what it is siting issues, and I can say that some of those retired coal plants are being looked at for high-powered heat sources. So we are looking at things like microreactors. We are looking at things like geothermal energy, which is so hot it can power those massive boilers, because those plants that you're talking about have the capability, and it's been proven you can connect massive energy sources to those because they need to be that big. We can also work on things such as some of the industries that have come in are recapturing their own energy. And those are things that I think I've seen in being on the Energy and Environment Committee that we're looking at and working on as well. So you're right, we need to reuse those. And you know, some of it is maybe the solar ability, but if we can reuse those spaces that are not there. In Will County, for example, Will County uses the methane from their landfills to add to their power portfolio. Natural gas, because it's turned into natural gas, and their rates go down because they're supplying, and all it takes is a small configuration on top of the landfills. So you're spot on, yeah, and I'd love to keep working on things like that.
Next question, sir. If you'd share your name and where you're from.
Yeah. Am I on?
You're on.
Yeah, my name is Ruben Alvarado. I'm also from Grand Ridge. And my concern, thank you, Representative Briel and Speaker Welch, for taking our concerns before you. My concern, at least today, is what I've been hearing in Texas about the redistricting in predominantly African American voting districts and Hispanic districts, where their votes will be affected by this redistricting that's going on. And I was just wondering today, like today in our area here where we live, there are communities that are, they have a good number of Hispanics living in the communities, and also in Chicago, of course, and Cook County. Is there a concern in this state and in our districts where the methods that Republicans are using to, affect our voting rights? I heard another attempt to limit like females who get married and then they don't they have a voter registration, a previous voter registration card, and doesn't have the same name on it. They've changed their names, and so they come to vote and they wouldn't be able to vote because their names are not exactly the same. And to me, that that could be very easily from a misspelling, even if you're not changing your entire name. So that concerns me, and because they, throughout history, voting, attempts to restrict voting is, been a bit of major concern in the history of this country. So my concern is there a concern in the state of Illinois, not only in, the metropolitan areas, but, downstate, or where there are, a good number of Black Americans and Hispanic Americans living in these districts. Should we be concerned about this? Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you so much for that question. And I think that anyone who isn't concerned with their right to vote is not paying attention to what's going on right now. Your concerns are completely valid. Right now, the Department of Justice has demanded our voter rolls. We have pushed back and denied. The Attorney General has denied. Hopefully, that's one law we've put in place. We know that it's going to be on us to make sure that we check our voter registration. Part of the challenge here is that county clerks are elected by the people. And they do have rules and laws that they have to follow, but there's also sometimes people who don't follow those rules and laws the way that they're supposed to. We've received information that folks are getting flyers in the mail that ask all their personal information from our county clerk down here, and information that had never been gathered before, which causes people concern and questions. So you're absolutely right. I do believe that in Illinois, we have some of the safest voting availability. We have made it vote by mail, something that is very common. We have early hours. We do everything we can, and there are teams at the Attorney General's office. So if you find any disenfranchising, or you're not able to, or they don't want to open a poll in your area for early voting, or whatever the case may be, if you bring it to our attention, we can channel it up the right chains of events. But it is everyone's right to vote who is a citizen, and 18 years, that's your voice. And the fact that people are willing to take away your voice makes me scared, but it makes me really, really angry. I caught myself there. I was about to use a swear word. So that you are not wrong to have those concerns. At least the representatives also understand that. Knowing how we work with, I have several pieces of election legislation. There's an election omnibus that's there that we're looking to protect it to even more. So, yeah.
Ruben, thank you for that question. You know, as I was saying earlier, I took 2 oaths of offices on the day we were sworn in. And every day that we start our legislative session, we open with prayer. And at the conclusion of prayer, a member leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we turn and we look at that flag and we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. And I gotta tell you, if you're not concerned about our republic, you're not paying attention to what's going on in government right now. We should all be concerned about the state of our republic, because it's fragile, and it's going to be all of us. It's going to take all of us to protect it. Redistricting in the middle of a decade is unprecedented. It's unprecedented. The White House calling governors and speakers, sending the vice president to legislatures and asking them to redistrict in the middle of a decade is all about disenfranchising voters, because they see that the policies that they're implementing are unpopular. In Texas, what they did was redraw maps, and they eliminated a couple of black congressional seats. That means there's going to be a couple less members of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I got to tell you, our communities have a lot in common, but I can tell you what our communities don't have in common as well. When I'm sitting at a table, I'm an important voice for the black community. In Texas, they're going to have a couple of less black voices at the table. They're going to have a couple of less Latino voices at the table, based on that mid-district redistricting intentionally designed to eliminate them from representation in the United States Congress. We should all be concerned about that. We should be concerned about the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is designed to reduce the woman vote. Women are they have been saving this democracy for years. And the SAVE Act is designed to reduce their participation in our democratic process. Women, if they have changed their name because of a divorce or for whatever reason, they got married. Let's use the positive. They got married rather than any type of name change. They can find a way to take you off the voter roll. The SAVE Act isn't saving anything. It's actually destroying our democracy. We should be concerned about that. We should be concerned about any efforts that restrict voter participation. And I've been saying this a lot since November of last year. Thank God I live in Illinois. Thank God we live in Illinois. Because I don't care how you vote. I just want you to vote. And we're passing policies that give you access to voting. We try to make it easier to vote, not make it harder. And that's what it should be about. We want to increase participation in our process and not decrease it. And so we should all be concerned about our republic so that it can continue to stand. Thank you for your question.
Share with us your name and where you're from, sir.
I'm Charlie Gannett. I'm from Boston, Illinois. My prepared question I threw out. I mean, it was on health care, but that's more of a federal issue on rural health care. One thing, I'd like to know where $25 an acre farmland. I own farmland. I'm paying $50, $60 an acre. I know guys get ripped off, pay $100 a couple parcels I know are farmland. I mean, and the state, it ain't the county, that state set up a formula how that gets appraised. So if you got high class B or class A soil, you shouldn't be paying no $25 acres. I could go out and get my tax bills out of my car, you know. But other thing on the wind tower solar farm, I've been approached, a couple of them I threw in file 13, but as way farm income's been going down the last 2 or 3 years, big time, these guys gotta make the payments of that. Why not put up wind towers solar farm? They own the ground. There's been plenty up for sale on that. And I hopefully, it's more of a federal, biofuels. That plant over in Hampton, it has the potential, if the expansion goes through, for 1,000 jobs. And they pay good salaries. Some of those jobs are paying $30-some an hour, you know. And out in Iowa, they got these whatever called stills, whatever, all around. Used to be Iowa. Used to be Illinois. Used to get like 30 cents, 10 cents, because the logistics to haul the grain to the Mississippi and that. But now, with the biofuel plants or stills to make ethanol and stuff, they're getting premium, you know. And
What was your question, sir?
well, the question is, you have to do something about the rural economy. Because I can name towns that are ghost towns now. Nothing left of them, you know.
You know, Charlie, you're not wrong, and I think a part of that is the example that I gave about the town around the entire farming community down around St. Louis, and how that land has been deteriorated. And Charlie, you're not wrong. That's kind of the big argument that we're facing right now is, yes, could we be doing different things with that farm? Should we be keeping that farmland as farmland? Should we be doing something different with it? But you're right, it is that individual's land. There are a lot of farmers that are aging that don't have family to take over. They're not able to farm, but they are able to have a solar farm, which generates them income. My biggest concern with that, though, is disreputable companies and companies that are not going to be responsible for what happens when that solar farm is done, when that contract is done. Companies that don't have longevity, that disappear, fly by night. Those are the concerns that I have that could potentially be more devastating for the folks that rent their land to those. We've seen it happen. Part of the energy omnibus that we talked about, I was able to discuss with Leader Hoffman, who's running it, and that was to talk about how non-union labor is often used for these smaller projects on farmlands, and these companies are not always reliable. And even if you're not going to use union labor, you still have to pay prevailing wage, which is union. And there's a multitude of reasons why we want to do that, right? You get much better quality, you have safety concerns that are addressed, and keeps the work inside the state. So all of those are aspects that are important, and what we were able to do, whether it stays or not, is make sure that those solars, that we have enforcement mechanisms to make sure that if a farmer decides to rent their land to a wind project or to a solar project, that they have recompense if it goes defunct, that they have recourse. So you're not wrong, but those are some of the things that we're working on.
I can't add much more than what the rep just said, and I agree 100% that I think property owners should be able to do what they want with their property. I think rural communities, urban communities, every community in Illinois has to be important to us. Our diversity is what makes us great, and we need to continue to fight for that diversity in this state. And, part of that is just making the cost of living better for everyone. If I can make sure the rural community has access to health care, you're going to want to stay there. I can make sure you have access to be able to get your kids to school, you're going to stay there. Make sure your groceries are affordable for you, like when we got rid of the grocery tax last year. Our whole thing is about trying to figure out a way to make living in Illinois, whether it's rural or urban, affordable for you. And that's our number one priority.
Okay, we're going to take our last question of the evening because we're getting close to our end time. If you'll share your name and where you're from.
My name is Ernie Marceline. I'm from the 75th District of Yorkville. I'm currently running for the 38th Senate. But a real dying need right now is our hospital in Ottawa is currently on basically life support in the worst possible term. When you get any farther east of Ottawa, you got a 1 hour golden hour is what they call it before from the time the accident happened or whatever happened to the time of your surgery. You got a half hour either way from let's say Norway or something like that to the next care. My question is like how can you guys maybe help them to stay afloat so we don't have to go all the way to Peru or all the way out to Sandwich to reduce the time to maybe save a life that we may need. Because when I was on the fire department, I was also doing the paramedic for 3 years. If you're given chest compressions, you're given chest compressions until you get to the hospital. And if you're doing it for 25 minutes, there's 2 people in ambulances, maybe tops, and you're exhausted, which puts that patient at risk to possibly not make it. So what can we do locally for this hospital to remain open?
Thank you so much. Just to give you a little background, I am a member of Citizens for Healthcare Ottawa. We have been working together to come up with a solution for OSF and one for the community that works for all parties. I can tell you that just today, we received all their data and they are not losing money. Okay, they did break a profit 5 years ago for the first time after purchasing the hospital 7 years before, and they have continued to make a profit off of that hospital for the last 5 years. So I'm not sure what stories are being told, but let me tell you what's really going on. You're exactly right. They're trying to pull healthcare away from the eastern portion of the district, from the eastern portion of LaSalle County, because they want to create this corridor of care. And the corridor of care was a very badly designed and not well thought out project. And we have been fighting them on that for some time. So you talk about the transportation, you're a paramedic and EMT. My father-in-law was also a firefighter and a paramedic and an EMT. And the transportation issue that we're facing right now between Ottawa and Peru alone, the transfer issues that we are facing are an abject failure. So they've moved all these services over to Peru. You're absolutely right. They moved ortho over to Peru. Now, I had thought that would mean you'd at least have an orthopedist or an orthopedic surgeon on call 20 minutes away to be able to see a patient who comes in the ER, right? Or have certain days, but that is not the case. If you go into Ottawa's emergency room with an orthopedic emergency, as my 92-year-old mother did 2 weeks ago, they will not give you a diagnosis of what it is until you've been seen by an orthopedist. So you either have to drive yourself over there, or they made their own decision that my mother was old and wouldn't be able to get there, so they were going to keep her in the hospital in Ottawa and move her over to Les Sal when they had a bed open when an orthopedist could get her. Yeah, mind-blowing, right? So we have huge transportation issues, and this corridor of care creation that they wanted to create, which also involves the mental health services. Now, they do need the mental health services. We need the mental health services, and that's not a bad idea in the grand scheme of things. But we have seen this monopoly, and I will use the word monopoly because an executive from that monopoly used those same words to me. He said the quiet part out loud. He said, "Ha, rural healthcare? Everybody knows it's a monopoly. That's a joke." Yeah, wow. Wow is right. So, as an organization, we are doing several things. We're fighting back. We're making sure that the Health Services Board knows what a detriment this is, how dangerous it is. If you're gonna have an injury, the fire department, the paramedics picked my mom up and took her to the hospital where she sat for 6 hours and we couldn't get her transferred without an ice pack. Her shoulder is broken in 4 places. My sister had to take her in a car and drive her to Naperville, to Edwards. And that is not just my story. I received 2 other stories from constituents since they've transferred services over there. There was a woman who went to deliver and she needed an emergency C-section, but they moved all the OB equipment over to Peru and she was not able, they didn't have the equipment for her to be able to do it. So you're right, our healthcare is not great, but I think that legislatively there are some ways that we can maybe require more transparency, that we can look at it from a different perspective. Look at it from not just dollars and cents, but also geographics. The project they came up with their data, you can interpret that data a whole lot of other ways. So just so you know that yes, we are working together with them, but also preparing for a full war. So if you are ready to gear up, you have a story, we need to share that with the Facilities Planning Board because they're really the stopgap. When we talk about, I mean, as legislators, we can do things, but it takes much longer. As individuals, you can have an impact in this case. I've watched the county of DeKalb. I helped them keep their nursing home in the county through the Health Facilities Board. So again, that's being here tonight. I know I started with, thank you so much for coming, but just the fact that you're here tonight shows how much you care. It shows that you're involved and active, and we need more of that all the time in every area.
Thank you, Arnie, for that question, and thank you, Representative Briel, for this town hall meeting. Thank you all so much for being out here tonight. And the questions have been great. I've been taking copious notes. I will tell you that I mentioned earlier, you know, our districts aren't very close to each other, but we have a lot of things in common. And one of the things that I fought for a few years ago was my local hospital that ended up closing, and the community hasn't been the same since. Losing a hospital could be devastating for a community. So fighting for health care is critical. It's a top priority for us. And so, you know, what does my community and your community have in common? You need to have access to health care, and especially for low to middle income families, especially for rural communities. If you're having a heart attack or a stroke, time is everything. And so we need to continue to fight for access to health care. One of the things I was concerned about the reconciliation bill that passed in July was 300,000 Illinoisans could stand to lose access to health care because of that bill, because of cuts to Medicaid funding. 9 hospitals, rural hospitals in Illinois, could possibly close because of that bill that passed. These are some real concerns that people should have. We're trying to do our best from a state perspective to help minimize that damage. And if you look at the budget that we passed in May, we put more money into free medical clinics. You know, hopefully people can go and get preventative health care at these free medical clinics to avoid having that emergency that they have to take a long ambulance ride in. We put more money into our safety net hospitals. We put more money, you know, in so many areas that we're trying to address it through state policy as best we can. But I said earlier, I don't know if we're going to be able to plug the holes that are being dug for us because they're just so deep. The budget also included additional funding for EMT and paramedic training all over the state. There's a shortage of EMTs and paramedics. We're doing our part. We need people to stay active and engaged and continue to fill town halls like this and raise these issues because we need all of us if we're going to solve these problems that we're having. And thank you for that question.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thanks for all of your really thoughtful questions. We really appreciate your time. We can't do this work without you folks supporting us. And a big thank you to Speaker Welch and his crew for coming out to Ottawa to see, or Utica, sorry. We're in Utica. And Representative Briel for hosting this event and her dedication. Everyone, have a wonderful evening. If anyone would like, I have business cards here that I'm happy to hand out if you folks want to schedule time to maybe talk again, or if your question didn't get answered, we want to make sure we get back to you. So just stop up and see me. Thanks so much. Safe.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to ask me questions? See Columbia here and you're moving. Have everybody it's like a show. No.
No, I know that. Good night, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
Bless you.